Hello and welcome back to Philosophy 105 for week 3. This week we're going to learn about critical writing, and we're going to practice writing an introductory paragraph to a critical writing essay. So I do want to stop right there and clarify one very important point. You are not writing an essay this week. You are essentially pretending that you're going to write an essay. You're going to plan it out, think about what you would say in that essay, and then just write the introductory paragraph. The reason for this is because in philosophy, there's a very particular convention for writing introductory paragraphs that helps with very clearly laying out what you're going to write about. It also helps you practice argumentation. And this is a really good transferable skill no matter what field you go into, whether you go into research and academic writing. This is a really important way to know how to introduce your papers and your work. If you're going out into the workforce, this is a really helpful way to think about how to preface any large amount of information that you're going to give to someone. It's just a really good overall skill no matter what you go on to do. So we are going to practice writing an introduction paragraph. You are going to listen to first you're going to read chapter 3 in our book. That PDF is on Blackboard right below wherever you found this video. And then you are going to listen to a 10-minute podcast. This is, I think, 13 years old at this point, but I just can't go away from this podcast. Students love it so much and connect with it and really enjoy thinking about it. It's about animal cognition. And I've just never found anything that really ignites students in this writing exercise that this podcast does. So even though it's a little bit old, it's still really cool. I hope you enjoy it. And then you're going to do the writing. You'll write one paragraph, submit it, and then you're done this week. So hopefully that goes relatively smoothly and quickly for everyone. That's what you're doing this week. In this video, I'm going to answer the questions that you gave me last week and introduce myself a little bit, clear up any questions you have about this class, and that's it. This should be a pretty easy, breezy week for you all. So a little bit about me. First, I'm sorry that this is late. Again, I had like 2 days notice that I was teaching this class. So I am really trying to organize everything backwards while also moving the class forward. And it's just taking a little bit more time and energy than I anticipated. So thank you for your patience. My name is Rebecca Fensholt. I'm from the Kansas City area. I grew up in Olathe. I went to the University of Kansas, and I lived in Durham, North Carolina for the last 6 or 7 years, and I just moved back to Kansas City about 6 weeks ago. So I'm really excited to be back in Kansas City. I'm going to get right into your questions to hopefully not take up too much time. So I had a lot of questions about office hours. Again, I didn't have a lot of notice putting this class together. I made a mistake, and I'm really sorry for the confusion that caused. Office hours are on Wednesday from 1 to 2:30. They were originally on Tuesday, but I realized that with that timing, I really wasn't ever going to be able to answer your questions about homework assignments because the office hours were before the assignment would even be posted. So I changed it in one place on the syllabus, but not in another. I went back and I gave everyone a point for that question on the syllabus quiz. So no one was docked points for that misunderstanding. And thank you to those of you who emailed me to alert me directly that that was an issue. That was really helpful. Is the final, there's a lot of questions at the final. Is it multiple choice and matching? Yes, and there will probably be some short answer questions. I will give you the full layout of what that is going to be on the final before the final happens. And just know that the final is not going to be hard. It's open note, it's open book. You can take it in multiple sittings. You can ask me for questions. I'll have office hours sessions. So I really, my goal for the final is for you to be successful. And I really don't want anyone to panic about it. It will be online. Someone asked if you can retake the final. I'm going to say no, but. So no, my policy is once you submit the test, that's the end. But if something's going on, if you had a bad day, if you totally made a huge mistake, if you're, something's going on that affected your grade, just talk to me. I'm a human. I know that you're a human, and we'll work it out. Will having the book be beneficial? Totally personal preference. If you like having a physical copy of a book, you should get the book. but it really, you have everything you need to be successful online. So I know I prefer reading something on paper. In this class, I probably would just use the online stuff though, and print out the readings, that I wanted to do on paper. So book, your choice. On the writing assignments, will there be a set number of pages to complete? Such a good question. I should have been more clear. Any writing that you do for me will be like very, very small. So it will be 1 page or usually much, much less. And then I had a few questions about studying philosophy and my background. So thank you so much for asking those questions. What branch of philosophy do you fall under, and how do you know which branch to choose? And a lot of students asked what my main interest was or what area did I study. So I want to go back and first say that I didn't study philosophy as an undergrad. My majors were political science and linguistics. And when I studied these two, in these two fields, I always had kind of like bird's eye view questions about them. Like, what makes a good explanation in political science, or how do we, best group language families? So questions about how we are actually doing the political science, or how we actually do linguistics, that really intrigued me. And I took philosophy my last year as an undergrad, and I realized that philosophy is that analytical kind of bird's eye view level of any field. So I studied philosophy of science with an emphasis in philosophy of social science, looking at things like philosophy of international relations or philosophy of linguistic explanations. And most of my work was in the philosophical branch called epistemology, which is the study of knowledge. But I also really enjoy the other, 4 main branches of philosophy: metaphysics, logic, which we'll do a lot in this class, and value theory. But most of my study was philosophy of science. The other thing that I really enjoyed that I never knew I would really love is philosophy of film, like movies. Really, I took a class in that and I love it. And I think I come back to it more than almost any of my philosophy of science stuff, which is really cool. How long have you been, how do you know which branch to choose? It's just your interest. I would say whatever drives you. If you're really interested in chemistry, you could do philosophy of chemistry. If you really like math, you can do philosophy of math. If you really like anthropology, philosophy of anthropology is so cool, and there's so many cool questions. So whatever you like, you can study the philosophy of it. In terms of choosing your branch, I would just say take as many classes as you can, either within philosophy or classes that end with theory, as that'll be a philosophy class, even in another department. And just get exposure to everything that you can. How long have I been at Wichita State? I've been here for 8 years, although I didn't teach here last year, which is how I ended up not knowing I was teaching this class, because they emailed my old Wichita State email address to ask me to teach it. I never got it because I wasn't working here, and then they forgot that I didn't reply. It was a whole thing. So I've been here, for 8 years with a little bit of a break. What are some hobbies that you enjoy? I love gardening and hiking. I love cooking, and I love going to the movies. Who is your favorite philosopher? Thomas Kuhn is probably my favorite philosopher of science. He was really transformative in philosophy of science, and also to me personally, reading him and thinking about the way that we think about knowledge and science. I also love how he writes so clearly. A lot of academics want to sound very professional and intelligent, like they know what they're talking about, and then no one else knows what they're talking about. And I find that so frustrating. And Thomas Kuhn really writes very clearly for all audiences, which I think is so important. And then Robert Dahl is my favorite political philosopher. He has a book called How Democratic is the American Constitution. And reading that book when I was a freshman in college was the first time that I realized that I can and should question even my most valued beliefs, which was probably my first step onto becoming a philosopher. How long have you been teaching this course? 9 years. 8 at Wichita State, but I also have taught it at the University of Kansas. And what is one of your favorite things about working in your profession? So I am a teacher, and this didn't totally come up. I think students assume I'm a full-time professor. And at one point, that was my goal. But when I started teaching in graduate school, I realized how much I really loved and connected with teaching. So I actually have been teaching college courses part-time while also becoming a high school and middle school teacher. So I've taught high school and middle school for 5 years, I think. And I actually just stopped that in June. So this is my first year coming back to school, only teaching college for the first time in like 5 years. My favorite thing about being a teacher, though, I love learning. I always have, and I never really fit at school. It just never worked for me. I wasn't a very successful student. I love that in teaching, I'm learning all the time. I'm learning about what I'm teaching. I'm learning more. I've taught this class like 12 or 15 times or something. And I always learn more every time I teach it. And I learn so much from students. So I love how much I get to learn as a teacher. And I also really love making the school experience better for students who, like me, really struggled in the traditional, like rigid school structure, school system. It didn't work for me. It doesn't work for so many students. And I really like trying to find other ways, multiple ways for students to be successful, because I really needed that. What do you like about teaching? That was kind of the same thing. I love learning. And I love reading students' work. I love seeing students grow and expand. And I enjoy, I think, everything about this job except for the paperwork. Why did you decide to teach critical reasoning? Technically, they made me. This was the first class that they assigned to me when I was a graduate student to teach. And I just loved it. It's a class that was so hard. I actually failed this class when I took it as a freshman. So I didn't go and I didn't do the homework, and I did ultimately flunk out of college and then come back. But so coming back as a teacher, that probably doesn't inspire confidence that I failed this class. It's not for lack of being a good critical thinker. It was because this class, I think, so often isn't put together in a very in a very helpful way that actually prioritizes critical thinking. I think that this class so often is taught with a lot of memorization in mind, which is so funny to me. So I loved getting in and totally changing what this class looked like, and really helping students achieve critical thinking, not just memorizing what types of arguments were, but how to make arguments and how to do it well. I just love it so much. I think it connects with everyone. Everyone's already a critical thinker. We can just become better at it. And I think that students always really connect with this material, which is very fun for me as a teacher. My favorite thing that I teach you in this course is Unit 3 is my favorite thing for you all to learn. It's when we do informal fallacies. It are like the funniest ways that arguments go bad. And once you start learning about informal fallacies, you can't stop seeing them everywhere. So it's fun to see students' perception of the world and the way they move around in it totally change. But I also really love the final assessment is totally creative. Students have done so many cool things. I'll show you examples when we get there. One student re-recorded all of Bohemian Rhapsody talking about informal fallacies, and a student made a watercolor children's book about informal fallacies. Really, really cool things. I love doing that. What is my favorite topic that we cover in this course? My favorite topic is actually Unit 2, when we get into formal logic. And it looks really mathy, and it can look really scary and intimidating. It definitely looked that way to me. But once I understood it, I realized it's like puzzles, and I love puzzles, and I love making it less scary for students too. So Unit 2 is my favorite thing. I think that was it for things about philosophy. And there were just a few questions about my personal life. What kinds of dogs do I have and their names? I got so many questions about my dogs. I didn't even know that one of them was in the background of a video. But judging from your comments, I think that dog you saw was Isla. She's a Great Pyrenees, and she's so sweet. She's huge, and she's so sweet. But I also have Potato, who is a pit bull Doberman mix. She's also so sweet and she's very nervous all the time. And Chuck is a Rottweiler lab mix, and she is so disgusting and smells so bad, and she's so gross, and she's like the happiest dog in the whole world, and I love her so much even though she smells terrible. And then I have two cats. I have Freet, who we call Fruit Man, and one of those, pets have weird nicknames that you don't even know why they have anymore. So Fruit Man is my orange, like medium haired tabby cat, and Beardsley is this giant, big, beautiful gray cat. And I'll post pictures of my pets with this video. The highlight from my summer, I think, other than moving back to Kansas City, was going to something called Cage Match at Screenland Armor, is a local independent theater in Kansas City that I really recommend going to if you're ever up here. And so Cage Match was 5 Nicolas Cage movies, and they didn't tell you what movies you were seeing beforehand. So you didn't know what you were going to see until the credits started rolling. And it was like a 12-hour Nicolas Cage movie marathon. It was amazing. I saw the movie Face Off for the first time, and I knew that the movie existed, but I had no idea what the premise was. And I cannot enough recommend watching Face Off without knowing what the premise is. So if you don't know what that movie is about, I really think you should watch it and learn nothing about it. And if you do know what that movie is about, you can understand what kind of experience I had not knowing what Face Off was about before going in to see it. It was amazing. What is my favorite band? Probably Led Zeppelin, maybe the Raconteurs, or like the White Stripes. I love Jack White, but I think Led Zeppelin. But my favorite musical artist is Otis Redding, and I really love soul music and like old blues. Very much, very special place in my heart. And then, how was your summer? Thank you so much for asking. It was really nice. I had a great summer. It was wild because I moved, and there was just a bunch of wild, crazy stuff that happened, but it was wonderful. And I'm so happy to be back in the Midwest. So I had a great summer. Thank you. Thank you so much for your questions and for watching this. Thank you for your responses and your reflections on your log last week. I haven't gotten to read them yet, but I'm so excited about it. If you are waiting for your grades, those will be updated by Friday. I totally messed something up. That's my bad. And I'm going to make sure all of your grades are actually input in Blackboard by Friday. So any other questions, please send them my way. And until then, have a great week, and I hope to hear from you soon.